It doesn't feel right to start this video in normal fashion for it's been my longest hiatus from posting a video for 2 years. Um, so I guess you deserve an explanation. And I'm currently in Vietnam. I've been backpacking Southeast Asia for 2 months, having a great time. Still doing my stuff, still thinking deeply, still reading much, still writing more. But to find a quiet place to make videos isn't the easiest on trips of this nature. So that's why I've been away. But I wanted to come back. I wanted to speak on some things. And I wanted to let you guys know what's going on and let you know that just because I'm not posting doesn't mean I'm not becoming better, wiser, all these things. And I've wanted to post, but as I said, it's hard to find quiet places. And even this is too much noise for me to truly be divine in my thinking and my speaking. But I'll give it a go. I've thought about much on this trip so far. I've learned much. I've grown much. And there's much. I don't know a single topic to cover in this video. But as always, I'll go off the top of my head and speak on the things that I feel that are important. And hope that you can hear me well because it's kind of loud, but this mic's pretty good. But I digress. As always, I've come to realize more and more that trusting ourselves is the highest virtue we have. And to know thyself, to trust thyself, one must know thyself. And to know thyself, one must spend immense time in solitude, in books, in writing, in thinking, in contemplation, in reflection. And if we do not give ourselves time for these things, then we are doomed to never know thyself. And for the one who does not know thyself, then they shouldn't trust thyself because truly I believe the self is divine. Science can't explain where thoughts come from. Science can't explain where we come from, where we're going. And to just discard this as trivial, as not important, as something we can't know is foolish. Because to think that they don't all come from the same place, to think that thoughts don't come from the place that we came from, that we are going, to think that it isn't all divine, to think that complete loss of the self, complete openness to as I say, all great truths are paradoxical. And if you don't have a certain level of understanding of these things, the things that I may say may make no sense. But to lose thyself is really to gain thyself. And to lose yourself is to really understand how divine we are, how if we just listen to ourselves, if we become completely and utterly selfish, that is the state of complete and utter selflessness. And only a few select people, I think everyone has the potential, but only a few select people can be truly selfless in nature. But they can only get there through complete selfishness because they know it's best. I hold the belief that the few are what drive the needle for society. The few are what change the world. There's two cloths. Some are cut from the few, most from the many. And the few have been Jesus, Confucius, Epictetus, Seneca, Plato, Aristotle, Buddha, you know, fill in the blank of the great, even the generals, Alexander, Caesar, Napoleon. Though they, I'm I try not to critique great man anymore because it's very common for a good man to critique great man because good men have it easy. They have time to contemplate. They have time to critique the morals and the ethics of the things that great men did. But they always forget that they only have that chance because great men lived, because great men sacrificed, because great men did things that they didn't want to do. And you know, I'm back and forth in this area because the means don't justify the end, so on and so forth. But I try not to critique. I try not to critique the great men of history so much because I live in a pretty good world, and they're a big majority for creating it. And who knows where we would be today without them. And many great men are critiqued. Julius Caesar was killed for trying to become a dictator, for becoming a tyrant, but Brutus organized the coup, and Brutus was a worse person than Julius Caesar. Brutus committed more atrocities. Brutus committed war crimes and pillaged and raped far more than Julius Caesar. And if you're to place good and evil on the things that people did 2000 years ago is it's hard because the morals and the ethics are just so different. And I'm not going to be good and evil on either, but from my understanding, Julius Caesar was better than Brutus. And yeah, but yeah, we shouldn't critique great men because they are part of the few that have shaped this world. And it's truly the few who shape this world. And the hardest part is when you realize that you're part of the few. What are you to do? What are you to do when you realize that you are no longer like the rest? Should you follow their lead? Should you listen to their complaints, their criticisms? Or when you have such a fine-tuned antenna to the station of the divine within and without, why are you to listen to the devil that speaks in these people who know not themselves? Do you think Buddha, you think Jesus, you think they would have went against their own nature to win against their own nature to listen to someone else? These people knew their nature was divine. These people knew they knew best. And yes, they listened to others. Yes, they were open. That is part of being wise, part of being a sage. But they were able to hold two opinions at once: the opinion of their divine self, their divine nature, and the opinion of this person who also has a divine self, who has a divine nature. And being able to realize that this could be a truth from the divine that they have missed. And I don't mean to speak so woo woo, but I think to discard the divine is foolish. I don't have a quote unquote religion, but I'm very spiritual, I would say. And there's something out there. There's You can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it whatever you want. But I think you're a fool to think that there's nothing beyond the material world. And that's the lie of, you know, capitalism, materialism, this modern day and age, AI, all this thing, that there's nothing outside of science. There's nothing outside of materialism. That's the lie that this modern day and age is trying to shove down our throats. And we're losing our antenna, we're losing our connection to the radio station of the divine. And there's nothing else worth living for. There's nothing else worth doing anything for. to become as close as we can to the divine is the meaning of life. And I know no better way to tell you that than to show you that than the way that I live my life. And it's something I work on. And you watching this probably don't personally know me. And if you do, I don't think anybody really knows me. But in those subtle moments we have with people, we can give them a glimpse into what our philosophy does for our life. And calmness is the highest virtue that we can implement to others. Seneca said that freedom from anxiety is the hallmark of the wise man. That's all we can do to show our philosophy, to show that we have truly exited, Plato's cave and we are in the light by being calm always, by having a high level of divinity always, by not letting these trivial earthly things overwhelm us, to be kind, to be nice, to be calm, to be at peace, to be in tranquility, to realize that these wants that we have only ever prevent us from obtaining what we truly want, to become truly and utterly selfish, knowing that that is the most become truly and utterly selfish, realizing that's the most selfless thing you could ever do, realizing that's the closest you will become to the divine. That's the closest that you will become to learning the lessons that you must learn, to being in the positions that you are meant to be in, to deriving from this life what you are meant to derive from this life, to leave your footprint and to help other people. We shouldn't, as of late, I feel, I don't, this is a little spiel, I guess, but I think to truly commune with the divine is to have a short memory. I don't remember the things I say in my videos. I'm completely in the present. I completely speak off the top of my head. I completely express that which is seeking expression in me. And you could say, people tell me, oh, what you said in that video, or what did you mean by that? And I'm like, I don't know. And maybe that sounds foolish. Maybe that sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about. But I think you're a fool to try to. In the moment, I know what I say, but I'm. I try not to think. I try not to let my past self think for my present self. So I could say, this. I could say something, but then now I have different information. I feel different about what I said, and I'm not going to try to remember what I said. I'm going to rethink, and that could be a completely different thing than I said. My um my username, my I don't know what it is. I don't know what the kids call it, but it's vagabond intellect. That is, to me, that means that I have an intellect that has no home. I may say this, and I have no shame in 2 seconds later saying I was wrong, saying I have no idea what I was talking about, saying that, I disagree now. I have no problem doing that. This vagabond intellect comes from the essay Self Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson, where he talks about consistency being a vice. And obviously, consistency is a virtue, but to the person who lets consistency corrupt their virtue, corrupt them doing what they know they must do, corrupt them from changing their mind on something that they know is wrong, is clearly a vice. And that's what I try not to be. I try to be a vagabond intellect in all that I do. And I try not to let the thinking of others be my own thinking, and my past self is another. My past self I don't allow to think for my present self. Obviously, in some things we must, because you know you never get out of bed in the morning if you had to rethink everything every day. But to a certain degree, we must rethink everything. We must be constantly rethinking, thinking again, wondering if this is still the way we should do things, and opening ourselves up to the divine, to the present moment, to what's seeking expression to in us in that moment. And I believe this is a compass to lead us to our destiny, to lead us to become the person that we must become. And this takes time, this takes calmness, this takes an understanding of oneself that doesn't come by chance. It comes by hard work, dedication, discipline, so many things. But I think that's the highest virtue, trusting oneself, truly, knowing thyself, truly, living in accordance with one's nature, truly. If you do all these things, if you do those three things, I think you'll emulate a light that is completely and utterly divine. And the people who also emulate lights will see it in you. And the people who don't will sense it. And you'll breed change. You'll sow the seeds of change in others. You'll plant the seeds. And people, they'll look back at you and the things that you did in those brief moments that they knew you, in those brief moments that they had interactions with you. And they'll remember forever the type of person that you were. And everything they think about you, it won't matter, good or bad. Because why should that ever matter? If you place value in things of that nature, you are doomed to place value in the devil. You're doomed to place value in the earthly, fleshly things that don't matter. They matter as much as they can, but as much as they matter as much as they must. But at the end of the day, we are a vessel. And where the thoughts come from, where we come from, where we are going is more important. And the present moment is the most important. And in the present moment, we happen to inhabit this. And we happen to have consciousness and memory and things, all these things. But never sacrifice your virtue. Never not trust yourself. I guess I just come back to that time and time again. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but, so I won't. But just know that if you care, you if you care that I am wiser than ever, I'm closer to divinity than ever, I'm doing well, and I probably won't be posting as much because it's hard to post. But I'm writing now, and I'm writing a book, and I find that to be far more divine than these videos. I find I can dig just as deep, if not deeper. And I find that I must write, so I will write. And that's the only time we should write. That's the only time we should speak. That's the only time we should do anything, is when we must. Doing anything out of like idle chatter in place of peace of mind is a waste of time. To say because we want, not because we need. I don't believe these are positions we should do these things from. But yeah, just know I'm better than ever. Just know I'm becoming wiser than ever. Just know that I'm still on my, grind. And even if I'm not posting, I'm still living up to that moral excellence that I preach in all these videos. And if I help you in any way, shape, or form become the best version of yourself, don't let the lack of my videos, I guess, stop that. Because I will never stop. And I will always be becoming better. And I'll always be trusting myself, as you should. You shouldn't listen to me. You shouldn't listen to anything that I say unless it speaks to you. Everything I've ever said, everything I've ever done is to try to get you to know yourself so that you can trust yourself, so that you can become divine as I am. Because we're of all divine nature, but how many of us truly know our nature? How many of us truly live in accordance with our nature? This takes solitude. This takes understanding. This takes time. And I wish you the best of luck in your journey. And